Hello everyone. As any year comes to a close, it's a time for us to reflect on the 12 months gone by. A time to perhaps take a look back at our big achievements, our big successes, joys of the year. Also a time for introspection. Take a look back at some of our failings, how we can learn from them, and of course, perhaps even some of the sorrows that may have tainted the year gone by. Now, 2008 of course has been a challenging year, quite a dramatic one as well. We've seen a crisis all around us, a crisis of confidence, a crisis of economies, and bringing it to you every step of the way was NDTV Profit. Our reporters, the entire team, was stretched to the limit this year, bringing you big breaking stories and tracking the financial crisis, corporate news, what's happening at the stock markets, all of that just for you. So we'd like to celebrate some of those big moments with you right now. Let's take you back down memory lane. 2008, our reporter's diary.
Live well beyond their means. The system that allowed them to buy houses that they could clearly not afford. The system that allowed rating agencies to get away even though they rated near junk instruments as AAA. And the system that allowed regulators and lawmakers to wait until the last minute to step in and try and solve the problem.
And assets. That means you have a very, very small margin for error. If your positions go against you 3%, you have no equity. So they've been very fragile creatures throughout.
I have to say that reporting on the global financial crisis and then what turned into the global recession was enormously rewarding and equally challenging for a journalist, especially a journalist like me who's an economic and a financial journalist. It was important because we were there at the right time, at the right place. We landed on a Sunday, I still remember, in September. And as soon as I landed, 2 hours after that, I got a message saying that Lehman Brothers had gone bankrupt and filed for bankruptcy. It was a crucial turning event for the entire story of the global financial sector and the economy this year. From then on, we were there for a month, and every day of that month, I have to say, there was an equally important event, an equally crucial event which changed the face of the global financial sector and the global economy. So reporting on each of those events was extremely rewarding, but it was also extremely challenging because at that time there was so much fear on the streets in New York. There was so much fear, panic out there that you wanted to be very careful on how you report the events. You didn't want to spread more panic. At the same time, the event had to be reported. So it was crucial to try and fit in the pieces of the puzzle. Where did every event fit in to the larger context of what was going on, perspective? And I think that's the one thing that I learned from the coverage, that giving perspective becomes all important, and that was the one crucial learning that you take away from covering an event like this.
The world over, prices of things like steel, copper and aluminium are shooting up. And Indian companies, especially steel makers, have hiked prices repeatedly. And that is feeding into Indian inflation. And soon, the finance minister and his advisors could use tax levers to curb the price rise. Sources in Finance Ministry have told NDTV that the government is monitoring the prices of primary articles daily. And under the scanner are prices of metals, minerals and food. Lower import duties and a possible export tax on metals and minerals are being talked about. And the government might also hike food subsidies to keep food inflation in check. And these measures fit perfectly with what the finance minister promised a parliament worried about rising prices.
It was sometime middle March, and I had this appointment with the then advisor to the finance minister, Dr. Subhashish Gangopadhyay, and in fact the conversation was coming to a close. I had pretty much wrapped up, and I asked him that, okay, what's the big worry for the government right now? I asked him very casually. Pat came the reply, inflation. So my next question, obviously, what is the government going to do about it? And he said, what do you think we should do? So I said, okay, one is monetary tightening. That will happen at the RBI's end. What else? So he again asked me what else. I was at a loss for a reply. I didn't know what to say. So he told me then that obviously we'll have to be now very aggressive on the fiscal front. And what within that? Tax cuts. In fact, aggressive tax cuts. Because when prices of commodities and metals are soaring globally, you cannot import the same stuff at high tax rates because that adds to the price spiral.